Thanks for joining us on this Sunday. It's been almost 2 weeks now since the Liberals unveiled Budget 2024, and since then, cabinet ministers have been touring Canada trying to get people on board. One of their big ticket items is the new electric vehicle supply chain tax credit, which they tout as being behind the new $15 billion investment by Honda in Ontario. It's the largest ever auto investment in Canadian history and the biggest investment the Japanese automaker has made in North America. I spoke with the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, earlier. Deputy Prime Minister Freeland, thank you for being here.
It is always great to be with you, Rosie.
I'm going to start with Honda because that, of course, is the big deal, the big announcement this week. And I want to ask why, in the case of this deal, did the government decide to go ahead with a tax credit as opposed to a production subsidy, which is the way you went with other deals like Volkswagen, for instance?
Because our system has matured. Canada is now fully established as the premier place in the world to build a full EV supply chain. And that is not just me saying it. Bloomberg does an annual ranking, and Canada now has displaced China for the top slot. So we are able to move to using our suite of investment tax credits. Those are available to any company, big or small. They are a really powerful tool for kind of owning the podium in this energy transition, which is like, it's the biggest deal since the Industrial Revolution. And Canada has the tools and the capacity to win. And this Honda investment, it is the biggest investment by a single company in Canadian history. It's Honda's biggest investment in North America. It's $15 billion. It really shows that our plan is working. And also, I do want to say, I want to pay tribute to the hardworking Canadians of the auto sector, and particularly the people who work at Honda. Honda really cares about quality, and they say that that factory at Alston is their single best one outside of Japan. That is a tribute to the people there. So yay!
If you hadn't, so is it fair to say that if you hadn't done the subsidies for Volkswagen and Stellantis, you wouldn't have been able to attract Honda and offer them a different model of funding?
Look, Rosie, I think that's a question for Honda. But what I will say is thanks to the great people of Canada, thanks to our amazing natural resources, critical minerals and metals, thanks to our clean electricity, thanks to the fact that we have a climate plan. Honda told us that was a very important element of attracting investments. Thanks to the fact we're the only G7 country with trade deals with every single G7 country. We are a stable ally and partner for our democratic partners. Thanks to all of that, and thanks to the fact that our government understands we need to make investments to win for Canada in this moment of economic transition for the world. And really, I'm glad that you're focusing on the investment tax credits because it really shows our system has matured. It's great.
Honda did not, there's no provision, I don't think, in your deal with Honda for Canadian workers to be employed for all of these positions at 4 different plants. Why was that not the case? Because there is some concern, as you know, from the Conservatives and others around the use of temporary foreign workers.
Well, I will say it's a bit rich of the Conservatives to claim to care about Canadian workers. When they were in government, they were the most anti-union government Canada has ever seen, and our government has acted time after time to strengthen Canadian trade unions because we think that is how you help all Canadian workers. On this particular deal, across our suite of investment tax credits, many of them, for the first time in Canadian history, include labor requirements. So, for example, the tax credits that Dow relied on to make their $11 billion plus investment outside Edmonton, that included labor provisions for the first time in Canadian history that mean you have to pay the prevailing union wage. For these particular tax credits, the ones that Honda is relying on, mindful of our competitiveness vis-a-vis the U.S., the comparable U.S. tax credits in this particular sector don't have labor requirements. Having said that, I have had extensive conversations with Honda about this, and I know that Honda has had conversations with Sean Strickland and the Canadian Building Trades Union, and both sides know how important it is for the Government of Canada that there be good paying union jobs building this project. I'd also point out Unifor put out a positive statement about this.
Okay. I want to move on to a couple of questions about the budget, if I can, because that's what you've been doing over the past, well, many months. But
I've been working on Honda too. It's part of the budget, right?
And but on the budget, I want to ask about capital gains, because I know that you're aware that there's been some criticism around it, and you've had to try and explain and defend this, including from Canadian doctors who say that this affects their ability to save for retirement. And I wonder whether you are concerned that this will hurt Canada's ability to attract and retain doctors at a time when we desperately need them, because I could see how a doctor may reconsider if they know that they aren't going to have this ability to save as much as they once did.
Okay, well, thank you for the question, Rosie. And since it's the first time you and I have talked about capital gains, I'm just going to start by saying for every single Canadian, your home remains totally exempt from
your
capital gains, right?
Yes.
That's important. For most of us, your house is your main asset, totally exempt from capital gains. Also worth pointing out that the new level only kicks in after your first $250,000. So for a couple, $500,000 of capital gains every single year before you're paying at a higher rate.
Right.
Now, I think it's also worth pointing out our government has made huge investments in healthcare and healthcare professionals. In last year's budget, $200 billion, a huge and necessary investment. In this budget, investments in dental care, investments in making diabetes medicine and contraceptives free. That is all going to help. And I'm going to say one more thing about doctors, if I may. We had some good news this week going directly to your question. So every year, Canadian medical schools place residents in different medical professions. And this year, they were very happy with the higher than before rate of young people accepting family medicine residencies. That's something that happened this week. After the budget, and that to me suggests that
they
actually
may not have
young
known
Canadians
at that point, though, right? I'm not sure I can link those two things.
The second round happened just this week, Rosie.
So you're saying that regardless of the complaint from some doctors here, that they believe that this is punishing to them as a vital part of society, as you've just laid out, it doesn't matter, that this is what they have to go through, like everybody else, if they have this this capital gains over $250,000.
You know what I would say, Rosie? I would say I don't think it's right to describe tax fairness as a punishment. I prefer to go with Oliver Wendell Holmes, who says taxes is the price I pay for civilization. And I think the tax system we had before the budget wasn't really fair. We had a tax system where a nurse or a carpenter could be paying tax at a higher marginal rate than a multimillionaire. That isn't fair. And when it comes to capital gains, it's probably important also to point out what we're talking about is the inclusion rate.
Yes.
So before the budget, half of your capital gains just wasn't even taxed at all, didn't count. After the budget, what we're saying is 1/3 of your capital gains still won't count at all. Still won't be taxed. We're only including 2/3. And, you know, when I think of the working people who I met at Honda this week, when we went there, beautiful day, beautiful announcement, none of them are allowed to say about their income, hey, only 2/3 of it can be taxed. So I am so grateful to every single healthcare professional in Canada. I also really believe that tax fairness is the right thing. And it's important to bring it back to why do we need that tax fairness? And we need it because we need to make investments in Canada and Canadians. We need to make Canada fair for every generation. So in the budget, we're investing massively in housing. We need that. massively in affordability. We need
Right.
that hugely in economic growth and productivity, in things like the investment tax credits that allowed us to attract $15 billion from Honda. That's why we need tax fairness.
Let me ask you, there is some indication, as you know, that Canadians aren't really giving you any credit for the budget, that they have seen some of the policies, not that they dislike the policies, but they don't like your government any better than they did before. Why do you think that is?
You know, Rosie, I know that the sort of the main or one way to think about politics is the kind of horse race sports sort of way. Really, truthfully, that is not how I approach it.
That's
We've
fine.
been working on.
So what is the metric then to know that Canadians like your ideas and would like you to stick around long enough to put them all in place?
Well, for me, the focus is really talking to a lot of people, talking to a lot of Canadians, asking what do they need. And what I heard was housing, make my life more affordable, invest in the economy, and we really want to be sure that young Canadians, millennials and Gen Z have a chance at a middle class life. That's what we heard. The budget is focused on addressing exactly those things. And what I'm focused on now, what the whole government is focused on, is actually delivering on what is in the budget. And I truly believe that the things we're focusing on are what Canadians care about and what they need. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe, as we see the results, that Canadians will recognize that. I have a lot of faith in Canadians.
Okay. Deputy Prime Minister, wish I had more time. Thank you for your time, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your time, Rosie. Always good to talk.